Thank you for joining me in another drawing tutorial. Today we are going to draw a baby dragon. This little guy has just hatched from an egg, and the first thing I'd like to do is start drawing in the basic shapes. These shapes are very basic, using circles and ovals. I'd lightly pencil in those shapes, trying to form the image that I have in my mind or that I might see from a reference. I'm using an HB pencil. It's a little harder than our number 2 standard pencil. So as I draw, I am just lightly trying to get the shape of the image. And this allows me to visually see what I have on my paper. This little guy has a lot of curves to his body, and they can be kind of difficult at times. But as long as you stay keeping your pencils light and you just relax, it's a lot easier. And as I draw, I try to look at the image that I'm looking at, like a reference, and I try to see how things line up. In this case, I'm drawing the right foot of this little guy, and I'm looking at how these fingers, how they line up with maybe the neck or the head, to keep everything proportionate. Proportionate is a fancy word of saying trying to keep things in the right places. Now I'm drawing in the dragon's eye. They gotta be quite large. That's what makes them look so cute. At this time, I'm going to speed up the video in time lapse, and then I'll come back and discuss what I've done. Alright, so what I've done is basically just trying to get the shapes and the forms of this dragon so I can begin putting the scales onto this little guy. And the scales act very much like fish scales or shingles on a roof. You have the top layer and then you have the section that's underneath it. So creating those overlapping scales give it the illusion on a dragon that it has scales. And some of the scales on this dragon are thick and thin and different sizes. It creates contrast for your image, which brings in more interest for the viewer. Now what I'm trying to do is just to pay attention to those subtle details of each of the scales that I'm trying to draw. How they line up with the other scales, and also the size comparison to the scales, because there are scales that are smaller, like these ones along the breastplate of the dragon. These are larger, and along the side of the breastplate of the dragon, I'm trying to create the illusion that the egg is cracking as the dragon is protruding from this egg. And of course I skip around a lot. I like to draw in different sections. Maybe I get bored in one section of my drawing and I decide to go somewhere else. And then I'll go back to the section that I just was at earlier. I'm going to speed this up into time lapse, and then I'll talk about what I've done. Okay, at this point I have gotten my drawing to where I need it to be. The scales are in their places. The egg is finally been darkened in just a little bit better so we can see it. And now I'm trying to bring in the cracks of the egg using shading and very thin lines to give the illusion that this egg is actually cracking and falling apart. So there's going to be spaces in between these lines that represent the cracks of the egg. That's something to pay close attention to give that illusion that this little guy is hatching from this egg. He's had quite a struggle, so we're going to place cracks in a variety of places of this egg. He's been tumbling, rolling around, just trying to get out of this egg, because we know that he needs to go through this struggle. Because this struggle causes him to use his muscles and become stronger. So we need to place a crack down here along the bottom side of the egg, because he's been trying to break free from this egg from all sides. Underneath, I want to go ahead and bring a little curvature right here to create like that shadow. Create a shadow for this egg. Use the side of my pencil. I'm going to go ahead and shade the side of it. Shade with the side of my pencil. Yeah, look at that. It's coming alive. I like it when it comes alive. Now as it gets closer to the egg, it will be even darker. And then as it goes out from the egg, it gets lighter. Just a little bit lighter. Yeah, very nice. I've got my kneaded eraser here. I'm just going to clean up some of these lines right through here. There we go. I'm going to come through and create some shadows around the bottom edge of the dragon. Create that separation between the scales. Create contrast and shape and volume. And that helps separate a lot of the scales that we have in on our dragon. Yeah, just like this. Very nice. Just the bottom half, just the bottom half. Maybe in some areas there's bigger gaps between the scales, and that's a decision you'll have to make. You have to make a tough decision. The whole thing with art is making tough decisions. Do we add a line? Do we not have a line? Do we eliminate line? Do we eliminate shapes? Add shapes? Underneath this dragon I added a shadow, to separate the head from the body, but also to give that illusion of volume. So the light is coming this direction, casting a shadow underneath the jawline of this little guy. At this time I'm going to speed it up, the time lapse, and then I'll talk to you about what I've done. Alright, so what I've done is added in those details, added in the extra shading, keeping in mind that the light source is coming from above, coming down, casting shadows underneath the sections of this dragon and the egg. And I'm trying to darken in parts of the dragon to make a better contrast, so it in a way pops off the paper and create that illusion of mass and that 3D illusion. So right now I'm just darkening some sections of the scales. Because some of the scales will not always be dark, depending on how the light hits it. But again, these are some major decisions you'll have to make as an artist. At this time I have taken a number 2 pencil. It just has a little bit softer lead and allows me to darken in those lines just a little bit better than I was able to with the HB pencil. Well, there we go. I think we're finished with this drawing. Tune in next time and keep drawing.